Now, long-time viewers of this show will know that Mrs. Rotary MP is not just an excellent narrator of Nico's emails, or that she's extremely generous with the industrial chemical use of her kitchen appliances, but also that she's a Beatles fan. So I've been trying to create a set of statues of Abbey Road, and this year it's George's turn. So I bought this Beatles 3D model from Turbo Squid. When I import the model here in Blender, there it is. It took over 4.5 minutes to load. Okay, my laptop's not the newest, but it's massive, the model. It's over 1 million vertices. So the first thing I did was to resample it down to about 100,000 vertices and just save it as a Blender model. Luckily, on the Abbey Road album cover, each one of the Beatles has got at least 1 foot on a white painted crosswalk strip. So I'll use those as the statue's bases. I need to add them then in Blender. We need to break up the Beatles, which I guess makes me Yoko. So next up, Paul and George fall out. I've added the Abbey Road pedestrian crossing paint under George's feet and then export it as an STL file. I'm using Cura to do the slicing, and we can zoom in here and use this feature to look at the center of George's talent, can't we? All the cyan coloured material is support structure, because of course you can't print into a void, you can't just print into space, so you need to make support structure up under his hands. Yeah, so unfortunately I've decapitated George. I know he had bad hair in the 80s, but he didn't deserve that. So now I've got to check out whether this support material comes off easily or whether it's too strong. Yes, this wants to break his wrist further up. So I'll have to be careful on the final version to get it to break lower by the fingers.
Day 2.
So I did another overnight printing session. Took 13.5 hours to print George, but I think it looks okay this time. So I'm going to need some sort of a flask to hold George while I pour in the investment plaster. Using the settings for kind of just doing a shell, like a vase, wasn't quite as successful as I was hoping. Well, after a couple of false starts, I'm now printing the flask that I'm going to cast. Yeah, only using 2 layers of wall thickness here, so it's not looking very pretty, but nothing that a bit of tape won't fix. Once the plaster hardens, just cut this off anyway. This is the investment powder I'm going to be using to make my mould. Mixes with water. You have to de-aerate it once you've mixed it, because of course you'll be mixing a lot of air into it. Now I've got this old pot, so I'm going to use that as my vacuum chamber to do the air removal. For that I'm going to need a lid. I'll just use this piece of plywood, just cut it to size roughly, and then make a seal and put a connection for my vacuum pump. Now I've set up my circle cutting jig to cut a 26 centimeter circle. I'll be filling this channel with silicone to act as a sealing material, and now I just need to cut it out.
Day 3.
I also modelled this part, which is upside down. This forms the top of the mould. This is a pouring basin for the bronze to get poured into. It'll then flow down this ingate here, and these 3 are just like runners. They'll both support the plinth of the statue and also act to let the air out. I'll put a bead of silicone around the bottom of this too, just to try and make sure that it doesn't leak out. The investment, the plaster kind of style investment's pretty quick drying. It's only got a working time of about 10 minutes, but don't particularly want to pour it in and watch it run straight out again. This is the vacuum pump I'm going to be using. It's the one for blowing up my kayak. I hope it generates enough suction to actually get the air out. Guess we'll see. This is the interface. It's this taper, so I'm going to have to make up an interface to make this work on my vacuum chamber. The idea would be poke a hole through here, make sort of an aluminium plug to go in the hole, make the inner taper of the aluminium plug fit this taper. Bit of silicone to seal and hold this in as well. Once the water hits the powder, you've got 10 minutes to have it in the casting finished. That's it. Something I found when I did the last model, which was Paul, was that using this kind of glycol-based stuff you put in your dishwasher to stop the glasses from getting glass corrosion, basically stop to prevent air bubbles from sticking to the model. Ah, you have got to be joking. I just broke his hand off.
20 minutes later.
Right, hands back on, moulds back together. Water's already in the mixer. So the plan's going to be start the timer, pour in the investment, mix for hopefully 1 minute. Once it's homogeneous, it goes in the pressure vessel, 1 minute of pumping, pour, and finally vibrate it with the orbital sander. Yeah, wish me luck. I have to wear a mask, so this is the end of the audio. Oh, another leak on the other side. Oh, shit. And not enough to cover him now. Oh, shit. Multiple leaks. Oh, shit.
Day 4.
Well, there's the mould. As ugly as it is, let's get it out so it can go in the oven for a bit of drying. The base plate came off there, which doesn't really matter. There's my pouring bowl, and there's the in-gate down there with 4 risers or vents. So at this stage it still feels very wet. I'll put it in the oven for probably 2 hours at 100 or just under 100 degrees to try and dry up the the unbound water before it goes into the furnace for its more significant heating for the melt out.
3 hours later.
So I've been burning out the mold, burning out the PLA figure, and it's now come up to temperature. I've also been just warming up my crucible. Now the next thing I have to do is take out the mold and set it down in this container with the sand in it. There we have it, people. One dead mold. Still hasn't completely burnt out either. I guess all I can do is put this back together and weight it down, and then when I pour, hopefully there's enough weight in it to keep this sealed. So this side here is this side here. Right, here we come to the hair raising bit. I need to switch over from propane to oil burning, which massively increases the speed of heating, but while it's still not super hot, it can be quite a challenge getting the oil burner to run cleanly, so wish me luck. Here we go. It's a bit of a balancing act at the start to get just the right amount of oil. Once the whole interior is white hot, it runs a lot more predictably. Right, I need to charge this again. So for that, it's oil off, air off, take the slag out. And more swarf in. This is pure bronze swarf. Unfortunately, of course, it causes a lot of slag because it had a lot of surface area. And air on. And oil on. As you can see, once it's hot, it's quite well behaved. Just when it's cold, it's a bit of a pain. Not enough weight. Should have used this one. This is lead. It's heavy as hell. Let's see if it works. Nah, that's pointless. Well, that's a fail.
A little longer than a few minutes later. Thousands of tears later.
As you can see, this wasn't the most successful casting ever. Kind of looks like George owed money to Jabba the Hutt. Maybe I can find a combined Beatles and Star Wars fan willing to pay millions for this unique piece of art.
The next day,
I had to think about it, and I think the best way to improve my chances of having a functioning casting is to make a new flask, but this time make it out of steel. So when I pour the investment, the flask stays over it, goes through the whole burnout cycle with it, and gives some support to the mold for when I pour the metal. Made this in Onshape and used their sheet metal function to give me a rough layout of what I need to make. I've now got all the dimensions I need, which are here. So I'll quickly lay this out, fold it up, rivet it together. I think I've got some steel rivets that should work. Now some may be wondering why I didn't put much effort into deburring this, but remember this is a flask that's going to go into a furnace for burnout for quite a number of hours. It's only mild steel. I'm going to be happy if it lasts 1 burnout. I'll be super thrilled if it lasts 4, but anything more than that is pretty unrealistic. So there's really not a lot of point putting a lot of work into beautifying it when it's probably just going to corrode away and fall apart pretty quickly. It's going. The next bend goes in the opposite direction. And then the third bend is back the same way as the first. Okay, it's looking good. The next thing I need to bend will be these 8 tabs, and I guess I'll have to do, I guess I'm going to have to do those just by clamping steel. Can't do them in the brake anymore. Right, here comes the moment of truth. Let's see if this all lines up. The radius doesn't matter on these bends, I'll just do them with the hand. The first one doesn't look too bad. Need a little bit of massaging, but it's going to work fine, I think. Well, now that that flask is built, I'll go around and try and seal all of the joints with hot glue. I could use silicone, but I know hot glue burns out cleanly. I think that's quite important.
Later that same evening.
I had a bit of a think about it and realised if I pour this big block of plaster, the middle section's never going to get dry because the water vapour is not going to be able to get out through the side. So flasks like this normally have a bunch of holes in them, so I guess I better start drilling. Kind of a shame, really. And having drilled the holes, I can now close them up again for the pour. I was a little concerned last time that I might get an air bubble in the hand causing it not to fill properly. Metal's coming in with the mould upside down, so it's going to fill up the arm and it needs some way for the air to escape. So I'm just going to put these two risers in for that air to get out down. Since Mrs. wrote a recent piece just gone out on an errand, it seems like now is probably the best time to use the mixer. Yeah, the only real danger I've got is I clean it really well before I put it back in the kitchen. It's always cleaner than the kids leave it, you know, without all the dribbles of food and juice and stuff on it. So yeah, it's kind of suspicious. I might get busted for leaving it too clean.
Next morning.
Here I am just mulling some sand that was all dried up from the last casting. I use the kitty cups to make up ingot molds. So it's time to take the things out of the burnout oven and start the melt. Boy, that's got an acrid smell. Cover that for now.
The next morning.
Well, if I'm going to put this much effort into failures, I should probably make an effort to learn something from them. So what do these tell me? One, the steel flask did its job, I guess. It's completely corroded away into almost nothing. You can also see that the iron has diffused into the plaster quite a way by about 15 millimeters. I'd appreciate feedback from people who have done block casting before of what they think of the idea of leaving a mild steel flask on over the top and having it diffuse in. When I set the mould upright, just before pouring, the thing which I saw, which worried me, here's the pouring basin here, and when I look down the ingate, which must be, I guess, down in here, it looked sort of like this. And what I'm guessing is the join between the runner and then the plinth here, which was hot glued. That'd be this surface here. What I'm guessing is that the hot glue might have only been across the middle and that plaster came in from both sides. What I really should have done at that point, I guess, would have been to stop, go down there with a sharp object and just break it out. The two broken out portions would probably have caused a defect, probably in the plinth, but that would have been preferable than having that cold shut where the bronze only got down to here and then stopped. You could see once I realized that this ingate had cold shut, I then tried pouring down one of the runners. Unfortunately, the runner I chose was actually this one, which is just the foam which led down to the hand. You can just see hand. Bronze was also not hot enough. That was a just lack of patience on my part. Since I've already melted down George in cementite, all I really get to show for 2 weeks' work is a nice little piece of bronze stock. I can use that. Yeah, and the rest will go back in the pot. I've put a thread about this whole experience on the Home Foundry, which is a forum, so I'd really appreciate any casters with experience with block casting. I really would appreciate any feedback you could give me on how to improve the process. Thanks very much for watching.